Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. My name is Seastorm, and you are watching the second installment of my Wings of Fire OC lore video series, today featuring Seastorm. For those of you who didn't know from all the branding, Seastorm is my Wings of Fire Sona, and also my favorite. Not that we're picking favorites, but, she's my favorite. So let's get right into it. I just want to start by saying that if you haven't seen part 1 of the series featuring my OC Stardust, you should go watch that one first, because I might reference things that I said in that video. Also, this timeline takes place 1,280 years after the timeline of the books, and also there's probably a lot of plot holes, but we just move on and ignore it. So if something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense, and we ball, okay? And now, back to your regularly scheduled program. Some fun little facts about Seastorm is that I made her, when I was first reading the series in, late middle school. I remember when I first designed her, I actually, started crying because I couldn't get it right, which is, kind of funny when you think about it in retrospect, because, y'all, it wasn't that, but it's not that deep. It's not that deep, but to 12-year-old me, it was, in fact, that deep. So I think that's just, a funny thing to mention. I love her. She's very near and dear to my heart. Seastorm is a Sea-Wing princess and was born 6,292 years after Scorching, which takes place 1,280 years after the timeline of the books. Seastorm has 3 sisters, 1 older and 2 younger. The older one is older by 2 years, and her name is Starfish, and the younger ones are each 3 years old, and they are twins. Their names are Clam and Oyster. The oldest of the siblings, Starfish, age 10, from the moment that she was born, has been assumed to ascend the throne after their mother, and is the pride and joy of the entire tribe as well as the entire royal family. Seastorm has always been jealous of the attention that her older sister gets, and resents her sister for this because not only does she want this attention, but also her sister doesn't, and resents it in an incredible way. Her older sister is shy and timid and cautious, which are pretty much the opposite qualities of Seastorm, but also not great qualities for a ruler, in Seastorm's mind at least. But because her sister is polite and non-impulsive, which are not necessarily qualities that Seastorm has, the tribe still sees her as the better and more fitting option for the next ruler. Not to say that Seastorm and Starfish don't get along necessarily, because they do find some camaraderie in the fact that they both don't want Starfish to ascend to the throne. So Starfish doesn't want to ascend to the throne, but she also feels the need to live up to both her mother and the tribe's expectations, and Seastorm doesn't want her to ascend to the throne because she wants the throne for herself. Despite it never being publicly confirmed, Seastorm is rumored to be, quote, the first Animus in forever. And this is sort of a rumor going around on the DL, if you feel me. It's not something that every dragon might know about, but certain people within certain positions in the tribe, and just powerful positions in general, might have an inkling that she is an Animus. Although, because it's never been publicly confirmed, both her mother and the entire Sea-Wing royal family have decided to try and keep it somewhat of a secret, at least until they believe that it is safe to tell everyone that she is an Animus. Because Animus magic hasn't existed for the last 1,280 years of dragon civilization, and most of the world isn't even aware of why it went away. And so it's just this sort of big underground conspiracy theory that Seastorm is an Animus dragon. Also, something that I want to mention is she actually isn't the first Animus dragon since the spell that kept it at bay faded. There has been one before her, but that's between you and me and also not really important at this point in the story, but I just kind of wanted to mention it. That was a little bit of background. Now I want to flash forward to the current story. So Seastorm's 2 younger sisters, who are twins, Clam and Oyster, had been kidnapped. This has her mother in absolute disarray, and the entire tribe as well, as 2 of the princesses have gone missing. Starfish, Seastorm's older sister, has been put in charge of locating the 2 twins, and has sent out a search party as well as notifying the other tribes of their disappearance in hopes of locating them quicker. Despite her sister's efforts, Seastorm does believe that Starfish has not been doing enough to try and locate their siblings, not because she doesn't love her sisters, but because she knows that Starfish is uncomfortable in positions of power and hasn't been utilizing the power of being a princess to its full potential in order to locate them. So, because of this, Seastorm decides to take matters into her own hands and try and locate them herself. Now, you might be thinking that Seastorm is just going to use her animus magic to locate her sisters, but her mother has made it very clear that Seastorm should not use her magic for, quote, unnecessary reasons. And even though one might think that this is a pretty necessary reason, Seastorm is also super stubborn and so decides that she can probably find them on her own without just using a spell of, where the hell are my sisters? That kind of deal. So Seastorm sets out against her mother's wishes on her own to try and locate her sisters. The first thing that she does is try and collect information around the palace of like all of the things that they pretty much already know, which is when were they last seen, yada yada yada. Then what she starts to do is look for clues on the surrounding islands around the palace where her two sisters were last seen. This is where Seastorm starts to find sort of things that seem mildly out of place, and this is when she comes across a mudwing. This mudwing is spotted from far away. Seastorm sees this mudwing and realizes that he looks somewhat out of place. First of all, he's gigantic, abnormally large for a dragon, so that automatically catches her eye, as well as his large gold chestplate, which is not something the average dragon owns. And then the third thing, being that he's in Seawing territory, and if an important mudwing was in Seawing territory, that their family would probably know about it. So all of these things combined sets her, her brain off to the fact that something about him being here is off. Seastorm is a quick thinker and often reacts very quickly to time-sensitive situations. But because of this, pretty much every dragon who's ever met her considers her impulsive. Seastorm considers impulsion an irrational trait and really, really dislikes that people consider her impulsive because of this. But just because that's how people, or I suppose that's how dragons perceive her, that doesn't mean that's how she is. So most dragons would probably assume her in this situation would confront the dragon right away, but that is not the smartest thing to do. And so what she does do is stay hidden and stalk him for days. After keeping an eye on him for multiple days, she finds his behavior to be kind of confusing and odd. First of all, obviously, he's not in any civilized part of any island, so he isn't around any other dragons. He also seems to be waiting for something, which Seastorm also finds very odd, because what is this guy doing out in the middle of nowhere waiting for something, right? And after a couple days of keeping a close eye on him, he finally makes his way back to a spot where she then sees her sisters for the very first time. Both sisters, Clam and Oyster, appear to be unconscious. Now, this is more than a little bit concerning, considering this either means that the mudwing has been bashing them over the head every single time they wake back up again, or has given them some sort of drug to keep them asleep. At least this is what Seastorm thinks initially. Now, this mudwing is incredibly large, and she knows that in just a simple fight, she will not be able to take him on. But she also knows that there is literally absolutely freaking nobody here. So this means she feels slightly more comfortable using her animus magic against him. But before she does that, like I said, she's incredibly stubborn, so she wants to try and fight him first to see how that goes. Not great. So she leaps out of the bushes and tries to attack him. She does land a first hit, but he immediately comes back with a counterattack, and this is when she has to use her animus magic to stop him in his tracks. He stops, he freezes, and she makes him fall over onto the ground completely unconscious. She then rushes over to her two sisters, who, like I mentioned, are unconscious, and the minute she touches each of them, they both suddenly wake up. Now, this is really weird. That would be weird. This is weird, right? So Seastorm is like, okay, what the hell? She asks her little sisters if they, of course, remember anything, if anything stands out to them, but both of them remember absolutely nothing other than the day that they were kidnapped, and when they were kidnapped, the whole world went dark. Essentially, they don't remember anything. Seastorm's first priority is getting her baby sisters back to the Seawing Royal Palace in order to get them, properly checked up on and get them home and all of that jazz. She also believes that her spell will keep this Mudwing in his place until she can come back and properly investigate. So after she brings her sisters back, she lies about how she found them and then rushes off back to the island to try and find this Mudwing again. When she arrives at the spot that she left him, he is gone. This is odd because her spell was not a temporary thing, so he somehow is able to escape Animus magic. Big red flag, there's definitely something up. So Seastorm decides to leave home on a quest to figure out what the hell is going on. And this is when she meets Stardust for the first time. Yay, Stardust mentioned! Stardust, using his future-seeing abilities, thinks through the future and the best course of action to cracking this mystery, and that's when he realizes he is destined to meet Seastorm. So he makes his way to the edge of the continent where he intercepts Seastorm on her way to the mainland. His future sight is foggy when it comes to this organization and the kidnappings, so he asks her about her individual situation. And when she tells him that her sisters were the ones that were kidnapped, he is confused because he would have assumed that it was her. So this adds another layer of mystery to this spooky organization. Because she doesn't really have any reason not to believe him, Seastorm agrees to join forces with him on their common goal of figuring out what the hell is going on. And so they set off to find their third dragon, Frostbite. So if you're interested in hearing about him, stay tuned for part 3, and thank you so much for watching.